loud because my computer is running out of space already. Okay, so what we're gonna do, what we're gonna learn to read files is something called the FS module. The FS module is a built-in module in Node, so we don't have to install it. And that module allows to read, write, and modify files. The files can contain text, binary data, or JSON data, or basically actually any kind of data. Cool. And why do we want to learn this? Well, as developers, we deal with files all the time, but how could we do so programmatically? Like if we want to create files, having programs that create files or that modify them, then the answer is the built-in module. So some of the things that we can do with the FS module is we can create command line applications that interact with files. What's an example of a command line application that you use or that you might have seen? We use them all the time, by the way.
The Heroku client?
Heroku client is one. That's a command line application. What others? I mean, I think you also said something.
No, I was wrong. Sorry.
Okay. Anybody else?
NPM.
NPM. That's right. And Heroku and NPM both are command line applications. That means you run them on your terminal. Let me. Oh, this is kind of tricky. Where to put you guys so I can also see. Here. So Heroku, we can do Heroku apps. I think, and then it lists all your Heroku apps.
Is Git one?
Git is also one. Any app that you can type a command for, that will be a command line application. Git is one, and Git. I wanted to also focus on NPM as well because NPM is written in JavaScript. A large part, I don't know if all of it is written in JavaScript, but a large part is written in JavaScript. And NPM, Heroku doesn't create any files, or not that I know. Whenever you run Heroku commands, it's to interact with the Heroku, with your Heroku deployment. But NPM can create files. For instance, NPM, if I make a directory here, sample dir, and I do a sample dir, and I do NPM init, which is a command that you might be familiar with. I'm going to do -y. This created this file. This wrote a file called package.json. If we do ls, we now see our package.json, right? And this file was created using the FS module because somewhere in the internals, NPM has this information, or it knows that it needs to create a JSON file with these keys, and then it saves them to an actual file that will live in your hard disk, in your hard drive. So creating command line applications that interact with files. For instance, like NPM also, when you do NPM install, what it does is it reads your package.json, so it needs to load it, it needs to read the information that's there, and then install all the dependencies that are found there, for instance. So NPM is like a good example of an application that uses the FS module to create files and read files. Some of the other stuff, this is all sort of the same thing, just from different angles. Saving application state to a file. So persistent information from our applications to the hard disk to load later. For example, creating a command line game where the user is able to save their progress. So you guys remember the first Hangman project that you did, which was in the terminal. With the FS module, what you could do, if you want to expand on that, is have the ability for the user to save the progress. I don't know if you remember, hopefully you remember that when you run that, the Hangman in the terminal, you start from scratch every time you run it, right? With something like the FS module, what we could do is you could save the game state, save what guess the user is in and save that to a file. And then we can run the app again. And as the app runs, we can see if there is any saved like data that we create, and then load it from there, as well as maybe adding to the game itself, adding like a command for saving your progress. So this is like also another example. Parse information from a file. This is like the most common. This is what we're going to do today most. Parsing information from a file to filter it, to manipulate it, or to transform it into a desired format to solve problems. And we're going to see a prime example of this. And just in general, to interact with the file system in the hard drive for our computer or our server. And again, we're only gonna see how to rewrite and modify files. But with the FS module, you can create folders, you can remove files, you can interact with the entire file system of your computers or of a server. As a few other examples is Molter uses the FS module internally. Whenever a user uploads a photo to their server, then that needs to be saved to the hard disk of the server, and Molter will do that for us. I actually double checked that and looked at the Molter code, and I was able to find the FS module being used. Another use, Webpack and React apps or NodeMon, they use the FS module to watch for files changing in the hard disk and then reload the app. That's also something that we could do with the FS. For some reason, you needed to watch when a file changes. You can use the FS module for that. Just a bit more of the same if you want to feed input from a file to your programs. Cool. So we're going to talk about the FS module. We're going to see a little bit of synchronous and asynchronous. We're going to see a little bit of how asynchronous was done like a few years back before async await or promises. That's with callbacks and so on. This was interesting to see again. Like this was something that my former instructor left. RTFM. Does anyone know what that stands for? It's like it's a programming thing with a bad word in it. It's like read the effing manual. And it's a comment that programmers use sometimes when they're discussing on forums and somebody asks something and they evidently didn't read the manual or didn't read the documentation, they'll reply with RFTM. So this is the FS module documentation. We'll see if we go there often. Any questions so far or thoughts? Okay, so for setup, we don't need to install anything. We do need to clone this repo that has the exercises. Let me find where that is. Let me share this. Zoom chat. So we're gonna clone that because we're gonna be writing some code there, and also the exercises that we're gonna do later are also there. So I'm gonna clone it. Actually, I'm not gonna clone it because I already have it. Pursuit, file system exercises. Just to make sure that I'm up to date. Yep. Cool, and then give me a thumbs up once you have it. Cool, see Jonathan. Brianna, I see you. Kathy. Amin. I see Jordan. Suzette. Peter, and so I think I saw most of you. Cool. So we have this repo here. Wait, where did? Okay. So we just need to clone this. What else? Cool. So let's take a look at the first example. So let's learn how to load a file from our hard disk onto our program and save it into a variable. So for that, what we're going to do is we are going to cd into the lesson examples one reading file folder. So I'm going to do lesson examples one reading file folder. What we do here, there is this file called myfiles.txt. I'm going to open this with code. And let me add zoom. Actually, you know what? Let me open the entire folder with VS Code. Everything. So in the repo that we clone, we have two folders: the exercises and the lessons example. First, we're going to get through the lessons example, and here we have this file, myfiles.txt. So this is a file that has information about files in a folder. Actually, these are some of my files. I threw in a bit of randomness there. Does anyone know where I got, how I generated this file? What can we get similar output from? It's a command we use often.
Maybe ls dash something.
That's right. So in fact, let me show you my downloads folder. I think there was a sample from there, from here. So yeah, when we do ls, we get this. But if we do ls dash la, list L for list and A for all, we get this output, which is more detailed information about the files that are there. The first column is the permissions of a file. The second column, I actually don't remember. I think it seems like it's maybe the number of files within, because I see that for this is a folder and it says 6. This is a folder and it says 30. Maybe that's the number of files we have. The third column is the username of the owner of those files. So all these files are mine, so that's why it has my name there. And the fourth column is the group these files belong to, and this is a default group called staff for all Macs. When you have like a Mac computer or a Linux computer, I think this even applies for Windows. A user, when you have a user and a username, and that user generally belongs to some different groups, and with those groups, the computer manages permissions as to what you can do and what you can't. This is just saying that I belong to the staff group. This is, I think, I don't remember exactly. I should have looked this up. But this is the number of bytes in a file. So this one has like 11 bytes. 11 bytes, I think that might be, that's roughly equal to 11 characters. Let's take a look at input 008. Yeah, this has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it has 6 characters, but it also has new line characters. So 6 and 5 new lines, that's 11 characters. So this file, input008.txt, is a file that has 11 characters. So this is the number of bytes of the number of characters that we're not gonna use this information as much, but it's just sort of like general knowledge. The third, the next column is the date that file was created in, and the last one is the name of the file. So before we had like applications like the Finder that allow us to, get all this. We had like the terminal, and this is how we'll find our files and sort them and know when they were created. Okay, so I generated this file. Where is the code? I generated this file by just doing ls-la in one of my folders. Cool. So let's say we want to, actually something we're going to do at the end is we're going to, by the end, we're going to group these files by their extension. So all the PNG files will be grouped together. All the JavaScript files will be also grouped together, and so on. So that's like something that you want to do at some point. Like, actually, that's something that happens if we think about it when. Oh, I closed the terminal. That's something that happens when you take, like in here, when you sort by kind, if you think about it, like all the folders get put together, the PNG images get put together, and some other stuff. So I didn't even think about that. But we're not gonna do it exactly like this. What we're gonna do is, at the end, we're gonna be able to group these files, basically return an array. Actually, let me just show you. We have it here. This is what we want to have by the end. We're going to have like an object that has the key as the extension and the file name, an array of file names. So JPEG, for instance, well, actually like PNG, there's 3 PNG files, and so on. So at the end, we're going to start slowly, but at the end, we want to have something like this, basically, where we took some file that we had in our file system, we arranged it, and we create JavaScript object notation JSON here for a problem that we might have. Okay, so let's finally read the file. To read the file, we just do this, and let's put the code back. So I'm going to create a file here called read file.js. The first step is to import the FS module. It require FS. Again, it's built in. You don't need to install it. And then the FS module has a lot of methods. One of them is read file. Read file is just a function like any other function you might have seen. It takes some arguments. The first argument is a path to the file. So path to the file is the files in the current folder / my files. And it's the second argument, and there's a few versions of this, is a callback.
Do you have to put the extension?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I should put the full name. A path to the file. The second argument is a callback, and this is, you might come across this at some point. Node-style callbacks. Node-style callbacks are a callback where the first argument is something called the error, and the second one is the data that you get back. And this is referred to as a node style callback. I have seen referred to. It's a callback that receives the error as the first argument, the data as the second one. Now, also, like I should start saying here, this is an asynchronous operation. So what do we know about asynchronous stuff?
They return a promise. They can even succeed or fail.
They can succeed or fail. We're going to expand on like the returning a promise, because this one actually doesn't return a promise. And asynchronous operations, they take time, as Amin said, and we don't know if they're going to succeed or fail. So what happens if this file is not there? Or what happens if the file is corrupt and we can't read it? Or what happens if we don't have permission to read the file? So yeah, an asynchronous operation is something that's going to take time. We don't know if it's going to fail or succeed. So the job of this callback basically here, and this is true for all callbacks, and yeah, I feel like we didn't see callbacks that much. So hopefully this also helps us a review there. The purpose of this callback here is to the code that is inside to execute once the read file operation has been successful, or if it's failed. So let's take a look here. So generally in this kind of things, we do error. We check if there's an error, and if there's an error, we want to, in this case, let's just console log it. Else, we have the data. Let's console log the data. Also, let me return here. And that's going to be empty. Cool. So again, this callback, this function that goes into the function, is a callback. This is a function that goes into another function. It's a function that's going into the read file function. This callback will be invoked once the read operation has finished, either successfully or unsuccessfully. And this used to be the way in which we'll used to do things. And I'm going to repeat this a few times. Before, when there were no promises. When I was learning, promises were around, but we didn't see promises until later on in the curriculum. We learned callbacks, this style. And again, so like just one more context, one more piece of context. Like asynchronous operations allow us to do stuff like in parallel, basically, so that our JavaScript can do a few different things. And I'm going to be repeating this point. What happens is, when you can think of it as the call to fs read file going outside of like JavaScript land and onto the hard drive and reading the file. That is not something that's done like, what would be the right way to put it? It's an external API. It's something external to JavaScript that we are allowed to invoke with our fs read file. And what we do is we need to pass a callback so that we, the programmers, get notified when that thing finishes. And again, we don't know how long it's going to take. So the best we can do is say, hey, JavaScript, go read this file. Whenever you're done, call this function that I'm giving you. We don't know when that's going to happen, but just call the function and then we'll know that we're done and we'll move forward from there. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Save this file, when we execute it, let's say node read, I guess I need to cd into lesson examples 1 reading files. And then I'm just going to execute it with node read file.js. Okay. And we get this, we get a buffer. And it says that it has 954 more bytes, and this seems like hexadecimal. This is because we loaded the file, is loaded in, JavaScript loaded the file into memory, but we didn't say what kind of file that was. So we have two options here. A buffer is just a buffer is an object that represents some binary data that's stored in memory. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but what we could do is we could do a few more things. One is specify the encoding here, the encoding of this file, and that is UTF-8. I don't remember if we need the hyphen. Let's try without the hyphen. Yeah, and then when I run that again, I run node read file again. Now we see that because when we do UTF-8, being that the encoding, we're saying, oh, whatever data we're reading is just plain text. We can do that. We'll do that UTF-8. We're actually not going to do anything that's not UTF-8 today. So UTF-8, I think, is the file encoding UTF-8, and it's basically how a computer represents text. And we won't get much into it. Yeah.
I feel like I put like a character set UTF-8. I've seen that at the top of some HTML boilerplate that I've loaded in before. I think Create React App also does it, like in the head of its index HTML. That's
right. Absolutely. Yeah. But I think sort of like what UTF-8 is still a bit blurry for me. I know that is a character encoded. So what that means is, and understanding that the computers only understand numbers is a way to map numbers to characters, to like letters and symbols. But I know that there's other encodings, like character encodings. Let's see what we get from here. Oh wait, this like an interesting. So like this is an example, for instance, like the word hello under the hood, like for the computer, it's just these binary numbers here. 48, 65, this one 6C, another 6C, and so on. So that is that. Oh, look at these other weird symbols here. Again, those just map onto like a number. But I want to see if there is other. Oops. Character encodings. Oh, maybe this sounds interesting.
I believe ASCII is one of those.
Mm-hmm. I think, and then I think Unicode includes ASCII. So Unicode is a bigger character set to represent much more like other characters. This looks like an interesting article. I'll share it out in the chat for you to look at. Chat. So I think I need to read this as well. I think it's still a bit fussy for us. I know that like in like the iOS people do have to care a little bit more about this than us in JavaScript when dealing with strings. But yeah. Okay, so we read that file. Let's close this. Go back here. We read that file, and here we're console logging it. And we just get everything back out. What do you think we're gonna see if I say data.length?
Probably the length of the whole text.
Probably the length of the whole text. Let's take a look. Node read file JS. And exactly we get 10,004. I did not calculate that number. Wait, 1,004, not 10,000. Let's say ls-la. Oh, and we can see that that matches the number of characters on there. Cool. Okay. So we, if anything, we wrote a program that's able to tell us how many characters there is in a file. Okay, so this is how you read a file. Try what happens if the file doesn't exist. You see that? Try it and share it out.
Well, it printed my error.
What does the error say?
It is an EOINT, ENOINT. No file, no such file or directory open. I just got rid of the dash between my and files, and then it prints an object with erno -2 code enonent cycall open path, and then the my files without the dash.
Right. So let's take a look at that. So I think what you did was like you just removed the dash and that file doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
We run it. Node read file, and we get an error object, which is interesting. And we get NOENT, no such file. And this, all this stuff means, this means I think just if the file doesn't exist. Let's Google it really quickly. Yeah, this is a good one. So here it is. Why is it called ENOENT? It means error, no entry. You might also get, you might have also seen this error. Any other instance where you might have seen this error? Or the NOENT? What happens? Yeah, Joanne.
I think I've seen that with like promises.
Not necessarily promises. There is nothing inherently tied to promises. But you might see this when you import a file that doesn't exist in your code. When you do require and require, let's actually just see that, I guess. Require some file.js, right? We get I guess a more verbose error that says module not found. Oh, we don't get the NOENT. This is just wrapping it for us. But supposedly there was something that was trying to load this file, and he saw that it couldn't do it, and in here it just gives a more verbose error saying module not found. But at some point, like lower, it must have said error NOENT. Okay, so again, this callback executes after the operation has gone well or bad, and then you handle the error and you decide what to do after that. Okay, so this is how to read a file. Any questions from this or thoughts? Okay, let's.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize my mic was hot the whole time. I'm just making sure that I fully wrap my brain around this. We're creating a file that reads a file through the command line when we call it. So this is sort of like a middleware of sorts.
That is right. I'm not sure like middleware would be a good way to put it, but Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not sure what you're referring to is that we could just read the file with cat,
Right.
or just
Yeah.
like with with our code editor. So yeah, like right now here we're just learning how to read the file and spit it back out. But the important part is that we get our content of a file onto JavaScript land, and then we know JavaScript, we can do anything we want with it, and that's what we're going to be building on as we go along.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, an interesting case that just came to mind is, what if we take this screenshot and paste it here? Can I do this? Maybe I can do this. So this is a screenshot. Let's go hello. And what happens if we try to read that? What do you think we're gonna see? PNG.
Just like some nonsense text, because this file is binary and it will try to convert it to text, and yeah, it will be just nonsense text.
Let's try it. Node read file. Oh, I'm still having the length. So we found how many characters there are and like the weight. But let's also see open reveal in Finder. Get info. This is probably too small for you guys to see. Wait, when I do this, does the screen zoom or no?
No.
It doesn't zoom. That's a pity. Says that is 1 megabyte on disk, 1,000 bytes. Is this 1,000 bytes? Or 1,000,000 bytes? I'm not sure. Yeah, so this is 1,000,000. Like this is like close enough. Almost 1,000,000 here. But anyway, what we want to see is like the data. Let's do node read file. This is what we get. And we don't know how long that will go for. Okay, final finish. But this is like, if you would console log in an image, this is what you will see. That's because an image is binary data that only an image program will be able to understand to then show us like a picture, basically. There are some, I think I had done that with a PDF. And with a PDF, there was stuff you could distinguish. Like there was some text, there was some plain text, but it was still like just random stuff. You can see that some of them like cannot even be shown, like this percent, not percent, question mark gets shown. Okay, so we're not gonna deal with like binary files, but you can, like with this, if you wanted to, you could create like an image editing program in JavaScript. That would require a lot more like knowledge on how images work and all of that, and like internal structures of an image. But like the concept is the same, where we're just loading a file that's in our disk, we load it into memory, and we can do something with it. But again, for the most part here, we're just interested in text files. Let's just get this back on. Mix the extension. Cool. All right, so let's go on to write a file. So writing a file. Wait, did I leave it here? Okay, writing a file. For writing a file, what we'll do is require the fs module. Fs. And then there is fs.write file. Very well named. You can see that the first thing we can do is, the first is a path to where do we want to write the file. The second argument is the data that we want to write. And the third argument is the callback. there's also some options we could specify, but we're not gonna deal with the options. So the first argument is a path. So let's say I want to create a file called message.txt, and this is the data that I want to write to the file. I'm gonna say hello world, and then a callback. And again, this is a node style callback error. And I think this is a callback. We don't get any data back, but just so we verify that. We're going to do the same thing. If error, actually, I'm going to do console log error. Actually, also return, so we can go along. And we're going to console log file written. And I'm going to console log data, but this data is going to be undefined, just to show you that when we're writing a file, we only get the error or no error, and data will be nothing. So let's try this out. Go back to the second folder, and then let's do node write.js. Cool. We see file written undefined. So let's get rid of this guy here. The callback for writing only gets the error. And I don't know if you noticed when I did, but here it created this file, message.txt. And if I click on it, then it has my content inside. It has the hello world inside. Cool. Okay, write something else to your file while I plug my computer. Write anything, maybe your favorite quote, maybe some ASCII art. Write something to a file using this strategy and write it to another file. Let me plug my laptop. Okay, anyone wants to share what they wrote?
I wrote a to-do list.
Cool.
I saved it to like a variable, and then I just like put the variable in the instead of putting the string there.
Wait, do you want to share your screen? It will be cool to see.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Then I have it in here.
That's right. What if you wanted them to be separated by new lines so that each to-do has its own line? Let's take a look at that. Yeah.
Does it when you does it overwrite every time you call the function? Like so it doesn't make the file twice, or just it changes what you have in it?
That's a great question. Your first intuition is correct. The file gets overwritten. And I'll open the file. Oh wait, isn't it to-do list?
Oh yeah.
Nice. I mean, it has new lines, but it also has like some commas in. Okay, questions or thoughts, anyone?
So I'm guessing if you get the binary data of other file kinds, like extensions, you still can make them, right?
Wait, say that again.
Let's say you have an image,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the data for this one, like the binary representation for it.
Mm-hmm.
If you write a file with this, specifying the extension, you still get at the end the picture you.
Oh, so wait, if I understood you correctly, like mixing an image with text file.
Let's say you have an image.
Yeah.
And you get the binary data of this image.
Uh-huh.
You save it in your file, right?
That's right.
And then you create, you do write file,
mm-hmm.
and you do the extension, like the name and extension is, for instance, PNG,
Mm-hmm.
and you plug in this binary data there,
mm-hmm.
and you run your program. At the end, you will have picture.
That's right. That's right. You will have a copy of it. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that is something I was just thinking about. We could write a program that copies files, because now we know how to read from a file, then write to another file. Let's do that one example really quickly here. I'm going to create like the 7 copy files. Move. Oops, I think I put it in the wrong place. So let's say this image, and we actually I'm gonna move this into 7 copies. Or I guess like we could call it like clone file. It doesn't have to be an image, but I'm going to create a file called clone file. Yes. Actually, let me give you time to do this. So what I want you to do, it doesn't have to be an image. It could be just a text file, one of the ones you have created. What I want you to do is to create a clone file.js that reads that file, and then writes it to another file you could call it anything you want, but we can also do like output .txt if it's a txt file or .png if it's an image. So, and we're gonna see something interesting here. Read from a file, you know how to do that now. Save the content onto a variable, and then write that content onto another file with a different name. In turn, what we want to accomplish is copying or cloning the file. Let's try that for like 6-7 minutes. Let me know if you have any questions. How's it going? Can I do some thumbs up? Okay, I think it's up to. Okay, cool. So, does anyone want to show us how they did?
I can go for it.
Cool. Mhm. So, walk us through. Oh wait, but I think you're mute.
Sorry, guys.
No worries, still happens to me all the time.
Yeah. So I created a variable for my file and set it to null first. And then I did fs.read file to read the picture file here. It has error data. I did if data return, just console log it. Else I copied the data from this file to my copy variable. And then since it's an asynchronous function, I don't know how long it will take. And so I set an interval for that, for the next one. So it check if the file copy is there, then I try to write the new one. I do fs.write file. I name the new one, give it the data, and if an error, also I console log, else I console log successfully and clear the interval.
Okay. Questions or thoughts from anyone? Brianna, how does yours differ from this?
Inside of my read file, I have my error, like basically from 9 to 11 is set up similarly, but I have my write file function inside my read file because I had them as two separate at first, and it wrote a blank document file, and I remembered that the read is asynchronous, so I just moved the write file inside of the read because I know once the data is once the data is returned, then it would go on to the next function, and if no data was returned, it would automatically hit the error.
Makes sense. I think it's even better than my approach.
That is definitely better, but let's understand also why, because again, we don't know. I mean, you have your code, but actually, could you put it back on?
Of course.
And
yeah.
could you show us how what you're going to do as well, like how you're going to change it? But because your code has hard coded in line 22, 100 milliseconds. What if you're reading a larger file that takes more than 100 milliseconds? Then the write is going to happen. What happened to Brianna was going to be an empty file, right? So then, yeah, let's move on this. Let's move the write file inside of the read file after we know that the read has been successful.
Can do this one. Don't need this one. Don't need this one.
And let's try this again.
Yeah, of course. Oops.
Right, we don't need the interval anymore.
Yeah. Yep. It has the copy.
That's right. Great, cool. Awesome. Okay, other questions or comments?
I have a question. How do we copy a file that's not in the same folder? Like, do we just have to do the same thing we would if we were to get a module?
I can show mine because mine isn't in the same folder.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
So my original file is in the writing file, like number 2 here.
Mhm.
So how I have it, I don't even use this anymore. My path is the file. So I know I had to go out to 2 levels, go into where my original file is, which was in number 2 writing file, and then the file name.
Mhm.
And then it wrote the new file in folder 7, I guess, here, this one.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mhm. And like you also have, this file has a dot in the beginning, which may or may not be what you want to do. Maybe you meant, yeah, like if you do that, then it's creating the current folder. You can also do / to also say creating on the current folder. Mhm.
Okay. Thanks.
Cool. So, Owen, does this make sense?
Yeah, this makes sense.
All right. So it's through the path. You just point to a different path on the, like outside of the folder that you're on, and that's how you can copy from a different place, and or to a different place as well. Mhm. Great. Any other questions or thoughts from anyone? So I'm not sure if it's clear in that example, but that leads to something in JavaScript that is known as callback hell. Because if you have a bunch of stuff that is asynchronous, then you need to start doing this nesting. Like, what if, this is a convoluted example, but we're reading a file and then we need to wait until it's read, and once it's read, then we write the file. But what if we want to like load another file once that one has been written? Then that loading of the second file will need to happen inside of the writing, or like, well, it looks like inside of the writing of the first file, and so on. So you start to like nest all these calls inside one another, and that's what is known as callback hell. Like, you just have a bunch of callbacks to do a thing, and because of that, then like async await came to be, where we don't feel we get rid of callback hell and make the code a little bit easier to read. Cool. Any final questions on this before we take a look at how to do some JSON? Okay, so let's take a look. So we know how to read and write files. You know how to clone a file now. Wait, let me do that one here so that I also have it. I was thinking about this. This will be interesting. Probably doesn't work, but so I downloaded this sounds. See if I can play them here. Share computer audio. The 7. MPV party. Do you hear that? So, well, MPV is a terminal program that allows me to play audio. I use it to listen to radio. It's not built in, but you can install it with Node if you're interested in. And I also have this other one. I just search for bird sounds. MPV train. Some like and in the distance. And I wanted to see if we could do the same thing. Well, actually, I also had as an example like callback hell. What I want to try to do is try to merge these two files and see if it works with JavaScript. So let's do fs equal require fs, and then fs.write file. Then, no, actually read file first. I'm gonna load party first. I'm not gonna specify an encoding because this is not a text file, so I'm just gonna put the callback, and let's call it like party here. Sorry, the error goes first. And well, we're not gonna play it with JavaScript. There's probably also modules that you could use to play the sound to interpret that. I just want to say if error, return console log error. This is console log the file. Let's console log loaded party. Let's take a look at this. Node clone file. Console is not a function. Cool. So we see the buffer. This is our data from our GAT file. And what we want to do is then load the next file. So to know the next file, know that I have to do it in here. I have to do it inside of the callback for the read file. So I'm going to do fs read file again. I'm going to load the crane and mp3. And then I'm going to say same thing. This is an experiment. I didn't prepare this beforehand. We'll see. Same thing here. Let me just copy this. Not that's there. Loaded. Right. So again, we're just gonna see some random data. Loaded the party, loaded the crane, and then what do we try to concatenate them and write them to a file? Let's put it like consts, maybe merged audio equal. Again, I don't know if this is gonna work. Let's try it out. Party plus crane. Let's console log merge audio just to see if we see anything different. Merge audio. We see that. Oh, this is interesting. It seems that like from here, from the buffers, we can see that even though this is hexadecimal data, we see that all of them start with the same up until some point, and then it starts changing. You know, from here forward, it's changing. But this is a hexadecimal representing the data of the actual thing. So maybe what if we do cat and then party mp3? Oh, but actually I don't even want the top of the file. I guess this is that. This is the head of that, and the head of. They're quite different. So I'm not sure why then it shows the same data inside. But okay, let's run this. Clone file. Okay, we saw data, supposedly MP3 data. So maybe this is works. So let's write that to a file and see. So again, now we read the first file, and we read the second file. Now we're gonna write a third file, fs.write file. I'm gonna call it maybe merged mp3. And I'm gonna pass the merged audio and error. If error, return console log error. Otherwise, console log merge. Something like this. Let's see. So let's comment out this console logs, or at least not console log data. So again, these are nested calls. We read for the first file, then we read the second file, then we write a file. And that's it. Let's see what we got. Node clone file. Oh, I still have some console log. But we see merge audio finish. Then we have this merge mp3. Let's try to play that. MPV merge. Maybe it's not gonna work. Ah, dang it, it didn't work. This consists. Yeah, it didn't. There's, I guess what this is telling us. We could do like if this was just text file. I think it would have worked. If this was text file, it would have worked. Since these are audio files, what my guess is, audio files have some structure. They have some structure internal that says maybe when it starts and when the end. Actually, I'm not sure, but what I'm thinking is it has some internal structure that when I just concatenate two audio files, doesn't work. What if revealing finder? So here, let's verify that the data was merged, because we could verify that if we, I guess we do ls or l. Huh, this is actually interesting. Maybe the merge didn't work, because I'm thinking this was 98K and this is 39K, but the output is 247K, which is more than the sum of its parts. So maybe then it is something in the merge. Let's do a quick Google search and I'll move on after. Stay buffer or concatenate. Oh, well, there's the concat method. Maybe allocate, compare, concat from array is encoding full size. Let's try that concat, but I think this works exactly the same. Or that concat is not a function. We did see that that was a buffer, right? It is a buffer. Experiment fail. Let's move on. So again, if those were text files, they would have worked. Cool. But again, here, I guess the idea is that with callbacks, then we have to nest our calls if we want to do subsequent things with our array. Okay. So let's go on to reading some JSON. So reading JSON is not different from reading any file. It's exactly the same. What we'll do extra is that when we're reading JSON, most likely you're reading JSON, you want to parse it so that you're able to key into it. So we'll do something like this. Let me actually copy this from here onto my code. Reading JSON, and reading JSON, let me collapse all this. Reading JSON. We have this JSON file. I'm going to create another file called read.json.js. I'm going to paste this here. So the only difference here is, the read file, we're throwing the error instead of console logging. That's also like fine for here. And what we do is we JSON.parse the data that we get into students, so that then we can say, student that age, for instance. And let's do this. City, this is 3, reading JSON, node read JSON, and we get our 23 there. Again, the only difference, the only extra thing we did here is that JSON is data that JavaScript, and actually I will say almost every programming language can parse easily. When you, for instance, in Python, when you parse JSON, Python and JavaScript are fundamentally different, but when you parse JSON on Python, you still create a collection or a dictionary of key value pairs. It's just that that's different from what we're doing, from what it looks like in JavaScript, but conceptually it's the same idea, like a collection of key value pairs. And here we're parsing that so that then we can, this is an exercise I didn't think about, but let's say we could say, we could modify this student with JavaScript. Let's say student.city equal NYC, and then if we console log the student here, then we're going to see that we have the JSON that we loaded, and we added another key into it. And then maybe after this, we want to save it, save a modified version onto our file. Okay, questions or thoughts about reading JSON? Oh, one part here is this sort of what we already experienced, where when we had to nest. For instance, here we have this console log. This is after the read call, but it's executed first. How? Well, the answer is asynchronicity. This executes, but it doesn't finish until later on. And JavaScript keeps going. JavaScript executes this. It orders the file system API to go read that file, but it doesn't hold there waiting for that thing to come back. It just moves on and it goes to this line. And then that's why we see this line first. And then, this will happen faster than reading from a file. And then once the reading from the file happens, then our callback is executed. Again, this is an operation. We don't know how long it's going to take. We don't know if it's going to succeed or fail. But once it finishes good or bad, then the callback gets executed, and then our code finally runs here, console logging the student. And again, this is another example of asynchronicity or asynchronous code. With async await, we can have it wait. And a pitfall with async await is that maybe you're waiting for stuff that maybe you're waiting for stuff where lower down below, the code you have lower down below doesn't need to wait for that part. That's something that we have to like watch out for. Okay, so this is how we read JSON. Writing JSON, similar but the opposite. Another way of reading JSON is you could just require it like this. If you want to, load some JSON in. I actually forgotten about this, but there's one problem with this, which is synchronous. So when you read we require, it will happen synchronously, one after the other, and you can't reread it, and you must have the .json file extension. So those are some things to have in mind. So writing JSON, this is the opposite. I'm going to copy this. Write JSON. The FS module here, we just have some JavaScript object. It's another student. What we do here is data. We stringify that. We stringify the student, and we can do this. Stringify the student. Then data is just a plain string, and then we just write to make the student. We write that data on JSON, and then we can do console log data written to file. Let's take a look at this. Node. Well, let me go back. For writing JSON, node write JSON. We don't not console. We're just consoling. This is after the write call, data written to file, and now as we open Mike the student, we get our JSON data here. So again, this is the concept of taking something that exists in JavaScript and saving it outside of JavaScript in a file in the file system. And here, JSON is an interchange format of very used across applications, even written in separate different programming languages. If we want to format the JSON a bit more human readable, what we can do is we can pass in some arguments here, null for the replacer and 2 for the space. And what that does is, as I run this again, if I open the student again, now it looks a bit more easy to read here. The 2 is for like the indentation here, 2 spaces, and the null is I think the null is for if there's any undefined value to replace it as null. Questions or comments? Okay, so we know how to read and write files now. Let's take a look at, I think I want to start wrapping up soon, since we want to do the exercise. The FS module has async versions and sync version of their functions. So this is an example of the asynchronous API. We can use the callback style, which is what we've been using so far, like this. And we could also use promise style. Promise style with async await looks like this. One, we have to change this how we import it, because now we're importing the promises property of the FS module, and I just call that FS promises. And if we want to do async await, then we can do something like this. Let me give you some time for you to look at this. Any comments or thoughts?
I have a question.
Mhm.
So with FS promises, is there any reason to use FS? Like, should we use FS promises all the time?
I don't have a good answer for that. If you feel more comfortable with promises, use FS promises. If you feel more comfortable with callbacks, use that one. I think, promises came to alleviate the problem, like callback hell, which is that nesting that we got a glimpse of. So yeah, I think it's at the end of the day, promises make that easier. So yeah, I don't want to. I don't have a personal preference, but I just know that promises can help make the code a bit more readable. Yeah. Mhm. But there is no difference between the two actually. Here, let's go onto the F file system. And I think I was reading this. Wait, is this the file system? Oh, it is. Promises. Oh yeah, this is sort of important. There is no guaranteed ordering when you use either the callback or the promise-based methods. But or use the promise-based API. I thought promise APIs. The FS promises API provides an alternative set of asynchronous file system methods that return promise objects rather than using callbacks. These APIs, yeah, but I don't think there is no difference between the two APIs. They both have the same functions, the same names.
Thank you.
Yep.
I would say personally, if I have like non-nested things, I would probably go with the FS. It's much easier and more readable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're not doing a lot of nested stuff or like that one thing requiring another, then the callback is fine. Mm-hmm. Other questions or thoughts? what I don't like of async await is that, well, like, yeah, for a small thing like this, I had to write it in an async function. I can just write await in the main, like, without having a wrapper function. This was the way that I first like learned promises. I think async await. Did I learn async await before I finished the program? I don't think I know async await before I finished. I learned async await when I was a TA for 5.0. This was the way that I grew up, like doing promises, that then and that catch. You might remember this from like early Axios stuff. That then is a callback for when it succeeds, catch when it fails. But this has also some nesting factor, because if you want to do something after this, then I have to put it inside of the that then. And if I want to put something, if I want to do something after that, then it has to be inside of the that then, of the that then, of the that then, which then async await comes to alleviate. Okay, so know that there's those two APIs, synchronous and asynchronous. We saw the asynchronous. Asynchronous has two styles: callback and promise style. And the synchronous, this is the synchronous API, which is most methods have a sync version of it. So you could do read file sync, and then that. And then in that, you can do stuff like this. Let me also take a look at it. So the synchronous API just, is easier for us, I guess, the developer to reason about it, because we know that fs.readsync file will just return the content, and then you can just parse that. But then we have to be careful here, and it's discouraged to use the synchronous API, because you may have code that comes after that doesn't necessarily have to wait for the read file to finish for you to execute. There's not a good example here about that, but yeah, this is JavaScript doesn't move to here until it has finished the read file. So this is gonna happen like in order: finish reading, then the console log for the student, and then when does this happen will happen last. And again, this blocks the event loop. And JavaScript will move on to the next thing until this thing finishes. But yeah, know that the asynchronous is discouraged. Sorry, not the asynchronous, the synchronous. Always shoot for the asynchronous version. Okay, so we're about to wrap up. So other FS methods, link here to the docs, unlink to delete a file, copy a file, open. I didn't want to get into this as much, but you can open the file for writing, reading, or execute it, and write file and read file, use these internally. Actually, there was something else that we didn't see. Let me just go back here. Yeah, this append file. Append file is to add at the end of a file, as its name probably suggests. I think we skipped over this one. Just know that it exists. I don't think I have it here. But yeah, open mkdir, just like the terminal command for create a directory, rmdir dir to delete a directory, watch file to watch for changes on a file, chmod to change the access permissions for an existing file. And there is a whole ton in the documentations. Okay, so let's get on to like how this could be used. But actually, even before that, from everything we saw, any questions or thoughts?
still wrapping my mind around it. But I'm glad that we're about to find out how it could be used, because that was my next question.
Cool. So let's say this could be like something that you want to do. There is coding challenges that are like this. I may share one that I remember. I think I have. Well, actually, I think some of you remember a coding challenge about like sorting and organizing photos that you had to like organize them by like the city that it was taken on. This is sort of similar. But here, you know, imagine a list of files, like a file with this content, as we saw earlier. And let's say we want to group them together by file extension. But I actually think I want to give you this. So the first thing will be, let's console log only the file names so that we get this. And basically, once we get this, we want to group them by file extension and save that to a JSON file, so that then at the end we end up with something like this. But what we're gonna do first then, and this is, if we go back to the code, here, let me close all this stuff. Let me collapse all of this. In the exercises, this exercise is exercise 0, 0. Oh, I think I might have the answer here. You might have the answer here as well. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So you're gonna have to do some splitting. I guess. Yeah. So you could like you have I think I pushed the solution, which is fine. But I wanted you to try it on your own first. So in the exercise 0, 0, we have our files. This is the same one we had before. And what I want you to do is write in the text file or in another file, if you want to like save the original solution, like save it with a different name, or just in another file, read the file my files, and then have it console log only the file names. Have it console log only the file names. So don't console log any of the other stuff. You're gonna need to split into like rows, then figure out how to get to the last column, and then console log only that. Does that sound good? Does that sound like something we can try? Okay, so given this file on exercise 0, 0, I'll say leave the solution that you have there. Try to refer to it as little as possible, at least at first. My solution is probably not the best one as well. Like I'm interested in seeing yours. Maybe just leave that one and create another file where you start writing your own. And again, we're reading this file and we want to console log only the file names, including their extension. So let's do that like for the next 7 minutes. I'll be right back. How's it going? Mhm.
So we're not getting back the first two ones.
The first two ones, you mean these two from here?
Yeah.
That's correct. Yes. Since these are not really files, these are like the parent folder and the current folder. It's kind of a bit weird, but yeah, we don't get those two.
But we're returning photos.
We are returning photos. That is right. Yes, photos is a folder, but it has a different name other than the two dots and the single dot. Yes.
Alejo, can I see your task? Oh, okay. I have a different task.js file in that folder for some reason.
That one is the solution that I have written. If it's already everything, I typed this out, which is just the
Okay.
instructions. Mhm.
Oh.
This is what we want to do, basically. Feel free to ask any other questions as they come up. Give me a thumbs up if you're still trying. I see physical and virtual thumbs up. Yep. Nice. It can actually be a bit tricky. I realize as I was doing it yesterday, but we'll see. We'll learn. Let me give you some more time. Okay, any updates?
Still working on it. I
Mhm.
missed it. What did we? Well, what do you want us to do with the dot and the dot dot?
Just ignore those, like, yeah, just leave them out of this list. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, let's do like maybe 3 more minutes, and then we can take a look. All right. Did anyone crack it?
I can. Yeah.
Cool. Do you want to share your screen, Joanne, and show us?
So.
And would you mind adding a little bit of zoom?
Yeah. Sure.
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out how.
Maybe Command plus.
How's that?
Nice. Thank you. Mhm. Much better.
This can be ignored. So I used the async await, made a function, and ran it down here. But the function starts here. I await the read file, put that into a data variable, turned it into a text variable that you can read by doing the toString, and then I split it by lines by splitting at the line breaks. Then I turned the lines into arrays. Well, you know what? Maybe I'll. So I turned the lines here on line 13 into arrays, splitting by spaces. But then I got spaces, I got empty spaces that look, I got elements that look like this, the empty string. So I filtered those out using the filter. And then I got, that's what we see down here in the console logs.
Nice.
And then I then going back to, then with these, I filtered them to only rows that had more than equal or 9 elements. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The file names start on the 9th element. That's why I filtered them, which would then get rid of the first row. And then with what I had left, those were all rows of actual files. And then I took them and sliced them. So I would remove all the elements except the last 9 from the 9th element and on.
Wait, could you scroll down here a little bit? So this is the first one, which is the dot, right?
Yeah.
Like the one that we're seeing. And then as you scroll down, we see that.
Yeah, this is the dot. This is the row with the 2 dots. And then this is the first actual row with a file name.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And you have it there as the last element.
Yeah. Where am I up to? Row length equals 9. Oh, okay. Yeah. So if I were to look at this one, the file names, I'm filtering out the ones. Now I'm taking the rows that I have, and I'm slicing them so I only keep everything that the 9th element in every row and beyond, and I'm joining them at the same time. So then that would look like this.
Nice.
Then I wanted to get rid of these 2, so I just made a hash map of what I wanted to remove because those are very unique. And so then that would just get rid of, those 2, which would leave me with that.
Nice. Absolutely. Okay. How does this feel for everyone? It's a lot of steps, but this is generally what there might come up a coding challenge where actually sort of the problem is dealing with the input, like formatting, splitting, rearranging like this. But I want to hear from a few other folks. There's a lot of work going on here to remove everything that's garbage and focus on what we want.
Yeah, I was about to say, did you notice, Joey, that you renamed the last one? The last file, you renamed it.
The last file? Oh, sample album? Yeah.
That's yeah, good. I was running into the same problem, yeah. So I was looking for a different approach.
Right. So
If there is an extra space in the name, it will make
split,
difficulties there. Yeah.
but you could just join. You could just join like on line 617 instead of joining with the empty string, join with the space. This is actually something I thought about like yesterday, last minute. What happens if a file name has a space in it? But then, like here, the key is what Joey identified, which is the here. Actually let's take a look at the file. Oh, okay. Screen share. We take a look at the file here. The key, a key to so what Joey did was he splits on the new line. So split on the new line. So let's do it here really quickly. If we get the data, let's call it const text equal data dot toString, and then those two rows equal text dot split on the new line. And if the console log rows here, state node, where am I? Oh, I think I just turned. Exercises 0, node task, yes. So if we do that, then we can see here that we have split the file into an array of strings, and each string is one row in our original file. So each element in this array is one row. So from here, then the key is identifying that the file name starts on the 8th column. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, the ninth column. And how do we do that? So the next thing that Joey did was, okay, let's split each one of these into by spaces. So what we could do is we'll need to loop. We'll need to loop. So let's do a map. Const row split or rows that map. For each row, we're going to map it to a row that's split on spaces. And we're going to see, let's see this. So from here, go on to this. Oh, wait, still console logging the same stuff. Rows split. Now this is similar to what Joey had, which is now each row here, each row is subsequently split by spaces. So we have now an array of arrays. And the first one is, we see that the first one is like the permissions. There is empty spaces here. Those are because if we look at here, these are spaces here in between. And in between those spaces, there is empty strings. So we can, then we do this. We could from here, then our column like moved a little bit, where now is not the 9th column, but like something else. But from here, I think what Joey did was get rid of the empty strings so that we get just with the data. And I think he did that he did that differently that how I'm doing it here. But maybe here we can do split. At the same time, let's filter it. After that, let's filter the data so that the data And we're just interested, empty strings are falsy, so we could just check for that, or we could also just check if data is not equal to the empty string. Let's take a look at this. Now we're closer there as well, where we have an array. We get rid of all the other stuff. We have an array of only the data that we want. If we go and sample here is split, sample album MP3 is split into 2 because there's a space in between. But all the other ones are looking fine here. So even the first ones, yeah, even these guys are still here. Cool. So from here, well, actually, this is kind of hard to read. The map with the split with the filter. Let's see if we could do this a bit better. So, Joey, you use a few filters. You just split.
Oh, there I just filtered out the, yeah, that's what I did.
And so we have the rows here. Let's do maybe like row split. Yeah, let's do it a bit more broken down. Let's say columns. Back here. Where our columns are this internal array. Then let's call it const clean columns. What we're gonna do is we're gonna filter out. Oh, but it's still we still need to map over our rows. No. Columns dot map. Oh. And then we're gonna do this. We call that filter. Say data, where data is not equal to the empty string. Where it's not equal to the empty string, let's keep that. Let's console log clean columns here. Okay, now we have our columns there. Now this is like a bit more more clean, and then from here, we then the key will be identified that we got rid of all this stuff we did here was just to get rid of the spaces. Here, then we need to see that the 8th element is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 9th column or the 9th element is where our file name starts. So even for the last one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. These two are part of our element. So what we can do here then is just remove the other part. Wait, actually, let me just take a look at, because I feel like the way that I did it first was a bit clearer than this many maps. I guess maybe it was just because I was iterating over something with a for loop. Where am I going? Yeah. And then exercise 0, 0. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, I think this is a bit easier on to understand. Not that this, yeah. Let's take a look at this. So I have here files. This is called a file. So we're looking over the file or the rows basically, and we split on the space. Let's see what this gives us. File split. I call these file rows. And let's see what we have here. Task. So it's similar to what we had before. It's just our console logging inside. So here I split each row by the space. And then I'm grabbing the extension here. Even before this, I'm not interested in grabbing the extension yet. I want to grab the name. Oh, I guess I did do this. Let's call it file clean equal the file split dot filter data where data is not equal to the empty string. And now let's take a look at this. Oh, console log file clean. Okay, we have that. Now we're interested in the name, which again we saw is the 9th, which will be the 8th index. So we can do that file name, so file clean dot slice on the 8th. Now let's do the file name. Console logging the file name here. In fact, we can this extension we can get better at. Okay, and then we have this now, an array with only the file names and their extension. And we can see here that if a file has a space in between, that will be an array of 2. So what we could do here is maybe as we do the slice, after we do the slice on the 8th, we can do that join with the space. So if it has a space, we join it back. Let's take a look again. And we have only the file names now there after a lot of cleaning that we did here. Then from here, we can do what Joey mentioned, like get rid of these 2. Also, these 2 are always going to be in the front. So something we could do to get rid of those. I think what it did was, yeah.
Splice. Sorry.
Yep. What was that, I mean?
I said probably use the splice because they're like in the beginning, so we can get rid of them from 0 to 3.
That's right. But Slice can do that as well. So what if we do here? Let's do this. Let file names equal an empty array here, and what we could do, yeah, we could do that there, or we could also just check here. It's as simple as the file name is equal to the dot, or file name is equal to the dot dot. Actually, if they're not equal to those, if it's not equal to those, then we want to push file names dot push and let's console log file names here. Now we have a file. Whoops, that is interesting. Wait, how did this terminate? Oh, yeah, we're gonna need to do it after because those are arrays. What I'm thinking is that it's like, no, this. Wait, any ideas here? We also got this empty spots here. Also log the file name here again. Yeah, I guess there is some empty stuff here. Maybe there is like, no, a space. Put this in here. These two guys still made it, so this is not working then. Oh, yeah, I guess there is a space because of this. The join adds a space at the end. So let's see, what should we do here then? Maybe we can just check this here. No. This feels a bit like, there's this. I didn't want to add these spaces here. Wait, what? Hold on. File name, let's console log the file name here. Oh, and let's console log also the file name dot length. Just to double check here. Length is 0, 1, 2. Okay, and that's good. Then that we don't have a space. Oh, I need to. This has to be an and, right? What do you guys think? I think that was it. And then if it comes to log the file names, there we go. We still have those two guys there. So what we could do is and file name is not equal to the empty string. There we go. So if it's not the empty one, if it's not the dot or the two dots or the empty string, we can do this here now. Okay, any questions or thoughts so far? This has been quite a few hoops we've gone through. And again, I think this is something that you might have to do at some point, where you get data, you have to split it, you have to shape it in a way that you need. And in fact, a fun fact is the first program that I ever wrote that worked did something similar to this, where I had, and I think I still have it, github.com. So I was looking at it yesterday. Further wiser. This was the first program I ever wrote. I think I modified it later in 2017. Right, 2017? Yeah, I guess so, 2017. I thought it was before that. But anyway, what this did was I used to have this file, this HTML file. At the time, I didn't know any HTML. I just know that I had this file, and this file had the information that I wanted to take out. And that information was, these were the kind of bread that we used to sell. So there were, quadrados, hamburger buns. And this was the quantity that it required. The client needed 3. And writing the program that then later on will give me this. From that HTML file, the program will then give me CSV. Is there one here? Then the program will give me this. From that HTML file, I strip everything that I don't care about. And then I organize it to produce this CSV file that it actually looks like this. I didn't know that it looks like this, basically. And these were some of our clients. It's interesting. Facebook. We used to sell bread to Facebook. It'll be interesting if I get a job at Facebook. Anyway, from that HTML file that has like all that information that I just showed you, then I was able to come to this. And I didn't know JavaScript at the time either. I was reading a book on a programming language called awk. And then I, with duct tape, put everything into a file here that will do what I wanted. But the point is that dealing with files is common, and now you know how to do that with JavaScript. Going back here, any questions from like cleaning, pushing those into this file names array? Yeah, it's a lot of cleaning, and you can imagine the cleaning that I had to do for that HTML file as well. That program that I wrote, that program took me months. I remember it took me months because I didn't know how to code, and I was reading this book on awk, and it was reading a little bit and then trying to make sense of what I read and trying to use it. So this first program, I know that it took me months. I don't remember exactly how many, but yeah. I was at some point yesterday, I was thinking, well, maybe I should give you that and see, like, do that in JavaScript. But let's get comfortable with this first. Okay, so here we just cleaned the file. We started by splitting into rows, then we split into columns. The column split is sort of like this guy here. Then we saw that there were columns that had empty strings, so we got rid of that with this filter here. And then from there, we found that once we had cleaned it, the 8th at index 8 and forward, that is the section of the split that has our file name. And then we just slice the array to that after the 8th index forward, and we join with the with the space to put back if you, like for instance, in this example. Once we have the file names into an array, and then again, we want the ultimate output we want is to group these guys by their file extension. Then here we have it almost solved, where we could just add all the file extensions to an object and then subsequently add the files. And just to wrap up, let's do that. So we have the file names. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create an object called files ext map. It starts empty. And then in this object, we're going to have the keys are going to be the extensions, and the values are going to be an array of values with the file names. So what we can do is then loop again now over the file names. So this do for let name of file names. Then let's split by the extension, which we can split them by the dot. So let's do let ext equal name.split on the dot. And we know that the second one will be, well, that's the first one. So this will be the 0th index, and then this will be the first index. That's going to be the extension. So we can do.
Maybe better to use length -1 because some file names can have dot as well.
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, if a file has a dot in the middle, not the last one, and we're interested on the last one, yeah, that is way better. And dot length -1. Oh wait, then that doesn't work anymore because I have to do the split length -1. Okay, so let's do let name split. Name split. We split by the dots, and then we do the extension is going to be name split. Name split dot length -1. Right? That's so that we make sure that is the last dot. Is the last dot. Oh, I wonder if we're gonna have to join later on. No. Yeah. The last dot at the end of the file names, in case our file name itself has a dot inside. And then we can just do. Let's do if the file name, if the file ext map has that extension already, I guess if it doesn't have it, we initialize it with an array, and we initialize it with an array, and let's put the file already here. So just put name. Else, if it doesn't exist, oh wait, if it exists, then what we want to do is just push to it. So if it doesn't exist, we create it and we add an array with the first name. Otherwise, it already exists. We just push to that array that we have here. And then let's take a look at the file names extension map. Awesome. We see zip, all the zip files, PDF, the 2 PDF files there, JPEG, JPG, MD, JS. Oh, I thought I had another JS there. PNG, 3 PNG files, and MP3, 1 MP3 file. Questions or thoughts from this? Is actually like slightly different from what I originally had done in the code, if you want to take a look at it.
This is just simply building a file with like names to parse for the sake of knowing their names. This isn't actually moving files anywhere, is it?
That's right. Yes, this is not moving files anywhere or doing anything. What we want to do then with this is just save this to a file. So that's actually like the final point. So let's save this to a file. Let's do fs.write file. Oh, remember that we need to stringify it. So I'm going to call it just output.json. Stringify JSON.stringify the file extmap. And we get the error here, if anything. Oh, oops. This sucks. Extmap. This is great. Like I can't see where I'm typing. Error. And then this error. Error. Else console log wrote. Let's take a look. Oh, also let's make it a bit more human readable. No, and 2. Right? Wrote some JSON. Let's take a look output.json. And then we have this map of files to their file extensions. And we see that then this is exactly what we wanted here as well. But again, this is, this is not like doing anything with the files itself. It's just like loading the list, parsing it to then solve a problem, which in this case could be group all the files, like tell me how many PNG files there are. It could be a problem, or group all of them by their file type. Oh, actually, this is interesting. This is kind of a bug. Hello, there's no hello file extension. So maybe this one, yeah, this is an edge case that we'll have to handle. But I'm going to leave it here for now. Any questions or thoughts? So this part, this last example was like, had some, I feel like it was more about like cleaning input rather than like reading the file and writing the file. But it's something that you might come across at some point for coding challenges, where you're giving data and it's not in the most organized way, and it's easier, the problem becomes easier if you do organize it. And that will be it. I'll recommend you do the exercises from here. There's these exercises here. There's like 4. They're not as complicated as this one. One is just like reading a JSON file. This one is fun. This one's writing a file. Third, what is the third one? So I think that these exercises. Third one, task. Oh, this was the one that we did. At the end, I realized that I left it in. This is another similar one if you want to try it out. This one is similar. Group emails by the language the user uses from the CSV file and save it to a JSON. So this is very similar to this one that we just did. There is a list of, this is a CSV of, I think it's 1,000 users. Yeah, 1,000 users. They have an email and they have a language. group all of them by the language. So for instance, I think, see, Portuguese, there's 10 Portuguese, 10 people who speak Portuguese, and we want to group all their emails into an array similar to what we did here in the previous one. So there is some exercises there for you to try out if you feel inclined. But that concludes our lesson on file system and the FS module. I hope it was helpful. Any thoughts that you want to share or questions?
Thank you for putting this together. I'm doing my best to sort of grab it, and I understand it's a lot of string parsing, it seems, but I'm getting the hang of it. I feel like I'm going to review this and get it over the next couple days.
Cool. Actually, you made me realize that there was a quote that I had read at some point, which was regarding this, and it basically said, it was a programming quote. It basically said, like, programmer's job, like 90% of the programmer's job was to parse input. I don't remember exactly where. It was something along those lines, and which is what we did here. Yeah. If I find a quote later on, I'll make sure to share it. All right. Yeah, again, I hope this was at least an exposure. At least you know that you can load files into JavaScript and manipulate them with JavaScript, just like we did with this one, by just, mere string manipulation. Really, like, that's the only thing we did here. A bunch of string manipulation to turn the data into a format that we wanted. And again, we took this file that was a text file in a format. It was columns and rows, and we transformed that into JSON, for instance. Yeah. All right, everyone. That concludes our lesson. Let me know if you have any questions later on as they come up. As always, reach out. I'm here for you guys. Yeah, that's it. Oh, actually, before we fully break off, think about what is it that you are going to focus on for the afternoon. What is the 1, 2, or 3 things that you want to get done by the end of the day today? So start thinking. I'm gonna create a board and I'll share it. Cool. I just sent the link. I'm working on the WebSockets for this website, so that as you're adding the nodes, they start appearing. I have it almost there, but I found a problem. But it should be there. Hopefully I can finish it tonight, so I can see it tomorrow. Awesome. Liking the specificity. That's all your point. Okay, I think Cupid down that you guys could be a bit more specific. Like what part of the essay specifically, one problem exactly, or Dante see like I know you're working on getting reassessed on the CTA, like what specific part, like what the user's component, the shows, adding a new show, etc. For next time. Mm-hmm. All right, do I have everyone? Give me a thumbs up if you left in the note. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. All right, everyone. I hope you have a good lunch, first of all, and then a very productive afternoon. I know that I'm checking with some of you. Oh yeah, Kathy and Douglas, just a heads up. Remember to, check your email, check your Slack. If anything, reach out, and I'll see you all at checkout. Have a good one, everyone.
See you.
See you later.
Alejo,
Yep.
you have a minute for a question?
Sure.